Hello and welcome to Liverpool Daily News. I'm your host, David Comerford, and I'm joined by Emmet Gates for what will be mostly a transfer window review, but we'll touch on a couple of the other stories from yesterday as well. But like I said, Emmet, let's focus on the transfer window and how it ended, first of all. Um, if you had to give a grade for Liverpool's month of January, what would it be? Because obviously Liverpool got off to a very productive start with that deal for Gakpo going through before we'd even reached the new year. But then nothing else really happened, and clearly the key issue and the thing that everybody's talking about is the failure to sign a midfielder.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it, really, to assess? I mean, if I had to give it a mark on a personal level, I'd maybe say 5 out of 10, somewhere in the middle. Um, Obviously, as you said, they'd signed, Cody Gakpo even before the new year. It was just after Christmas and before the new year. But I think we kind of knew, didn't we, that Liverpool really weren't going to sign anybody else after Gakpo arrived. Jurgen Klopp had said so, and it seems voices coming out of the club are pretty much, if there's an opportunity, maybe we'll pounce and sign someone if the opportunity arises, and if it doesn't, then we won't. And I think that's kind of the way it played out. They maybe looked around and there was no one really that they could sign. I think primarily, I think they might have wanted someone in on a 6 month basis just for the remainder of the season, a low cost deal just to kind of pad out the squad. I mean, the likes of Jude Bellingham, there was never any chance of it happening in January. And Enzo Fernandez, well, we saw in the Chelsea deal how much Liverpool would have had to have paid basically to get Enzo Fernandez now. Uh, so I mean, realistically, I think we all kind of recognised that Liverpool really weren't going to buy the midfielder that we all know they need. Um, but it was interesting that they didn't even try another Arthur Melo type move just for
Mm.
6 months, just to get another body in the midfield. So I do think I wasn't surprised with how things ended and how the month ended because we've been hearing it all month. But I would say if I had to give it a rating out of 10, probably a 5.
And I think the interesting thing is, had there been a midfielder to supplement Gakpo, then you're probably looking at kind of 8, 9, 10 scores really for the window. Like it would have been perfect, but now because that didn't happen, then the window's viewed a lot more negatively. And I think the timing of that deal as well almost makes you feel like Liverpool haven't signed anyone. Also, the fact that Gakpo's come in and for various reasons hasn't maybe made too much of a big impact so far. So it kind of feels like Liverpool have kind of been stagnant when they have added someone. It just wasn't in the area they need. And if you are listening along with us, I want to drop your what your score will be in the chat. We might read out a few of those in a minute. But to touch on something you said there, I mean, you spoke about some of the business being done elsewhere. Obviously, we saw some midfielders move around yesterday. I mean, how much does that affect how you have to view Liverpool's transfer window? Obviously, Chelsea landed a player who we think Liverpool were interested in Fernandez, and Manchester United doing a kind of a different kind of deal, I suppose. For Sabitzer on loan after Eriksen got injured, maybe that's the kind of deal Liverpool fans would have wanted. And then obviously we saw Jorginho going to Arsenal as well. So a few midfielders moving around. Does that kind of make Liverpool? Does that sort of deteriorate the image of this window further? Would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, we've talked about before what kind of Liverpool need in midfield. So I think signing someone like Jorginho was always kind of out of the question, especially when they have Thiago there, who's a similar-ish type of player. But yeah, I think Fernandez obviously going, leaves Liverpool with one less name to maybe to sign in the summer. And I think the club's kind of playing a dangerous game and maybe leaving Bellingham as their only option, the all in, because if it doesn't happen, then you kind of, you survey the landscape and you think, well, who else can Liverpool really sign that can offer what Bellingham can offer and at that young age? And it is going to be, and I think it's going to be very difficult now for Liverpool to sign Bellingham in the summer. Obviously, Chelsea's obviously out of the equation, but if Real Madrid or Man City come, sniffing around Bellingham, and with the finances that they have, you do think that Liverpool will struggle, and I do think it is kind of a dangerous game that they're putting all their eggs in the Bellingham basket. Um, and so then, we've seen obviously Enzo Fernandez linked so many times with Liverpool since basically the last 3 or 4 months now. He's off the table. So you do think it's either Bellingham or bust at this point. So yeah, and as you say, like with Sabitzer, they're going to Manchester United. That is kind of a deal, an opportunity that maybe Liverpool should have eked out. Just someone just to bring in for just until June, and then if they did well, keep them. If they didn't, send them back, and then obviously the summer transfer targets would already have been identified, and then you go after them. But yeah, I do think it's a dangerous game they're playing. Going all in and Bellingham because it may not work.
Yeah, I think Liverpool obviously did that kind of deal with Artur last summer, but just given that he's not really been able to play, maybe it was worth almost trying again and cutting your losses on that one. Just looking at a few of the comments here. Kazi saying, I knew we wouldn't spend much. I was surprised we didn't get a player in through the door. We did get a player in through the door, in Gakpo. Unless we sell a portion of the club or a full sale, I don't think we're going to spend much in the summer either. So yeah, looking back to what you were saying there, Emmet, about maybe, that Champions League money not being there. Eddie saying the score for the window would be 0. Pretty damning indictment to Gakpo there. And an Angel saying FSG refused to compete with our PR rivals financially, and so we face mediocrity this season. So yeah, obviously you can tell that the mood is already a bit low, and made worse by the news yesterday that Konate is going to be out for a few weeks with a hamstring injury. I mean, there's plenty of angles we can kind of come at this from, but I guess, is this just increasingly feeling like a season that has to be written off? When you get news like that, I mean, the particularly brutal thing about the Konate injury is he'd been probably Liverpool's best player, I think, certainly since Van Dijk got injured, and now he's going to face a layoff as well. Does it just kind of, is there stuff like this sap you of any kind of remaining optimism you have for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's such a weird season in the fact that it's such a contrast from last season, where Liverpool going into like the middle of May could have won 4 trophies, and we sit here now in the 1st of February, and you're going to say they're out of the 2 cups, they've not a chance of winning the league. The Champions League, I mean, honestly, I can't really see Liverpool getting a result against Real Madrid over both legs. So you think by the middle of March they're going to be out of everything, and it's such a contrast to last season where everything seemed to be working. Every player was playing at the top of their game. Injuries really weren't an issue last season. Won 2 cups, got the Champions League final, lost the Premier League title on the last day of the season, and this season has just been. As you said, Dave, it is. You would have to write it off. And the contrast is huge between how smooth things went last year to this year, where nothing seems to go right. Every player seems to be either injured or seriously out of form. And as you say, Konate has probably been Liverpool's best defender in the last couple of months. And I know he's going to miss 3 or 4 games, and he is a doubt for the first leg against Real Madrid. And should he be out, you kind of think it's not looking good for Liverpool in that first leg. But yeah, I think this is a season you just have to write it off and then start afresh in the summer. I think there is a serious rebuild that needs to happen. But whether FSG have the funds to fund it is a different matter. But yeah, I think we can look back on this season in 2 or 3 years and go, yeah, that was a write-off of a season. It's a hangover, I think, from how things ended at the end of last season. Losing the Champions League final, losing the Premier League title on the last day, and I just don't think this season's ever going going. Maybe it was the shorter summer pre-season because of the World Cup. The season started earlier. I don't really know, but yeah, things have just, Liverpool have never got off the ground really from mid-August.
Part of me wonders as well whether, you talk about the season being a write-off, whether that is almost factored kind of silently into the club's thinking, and they're like, you know what, let's just save our money in January, let's take the hit, and we'll make sure if we're not going to be in the Champions League, then we'll make sure that we have as much money available still for Bellingham, and you can debate the merits of that approach, but I do wonder if that's what they decided. One last thing to touch on before we finish for this morning. Newcastle were playing Southampton in the Carabao Cup semi-finals last night. They got through to the final where they'll probably be facing Man United, but the one negative for them was that Bruno Guimaraes picked up a red card, and he is going to be suspended now for 3 games, which will include the game against Liverpool at St James's Park on the 18th of February. Obviously, if Liverpool do have any hope of getting into top 4, it's probably a must-win, given Newcastle's position relative to their own. How big a blow is that for Newcastle? Is it something that really tips the scales in Liverpool's favour?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's obviously, they signed Guimaraes about a year ago, and he's just settled right into that Newcastle midfield, and he's made them a whole lot better. And you probably would have said that at the time that he was too good of a player for Newcastle, but obviously the way Newcastle have performed this season, he's obviously raised the level of the midfield. And yeah, I do think that will definitely give Liverpool the advantage, especially in midfield. And to be honest, the way Liverpool's midfield's been playing this season, they need all the advantages they can get at this stage. So yeah, I do think that's a big blow for Newcastle. But in saying that, he's clearly their star man, but Eddie Howe's kind of turned him into a well-drilled unit, and that obviously they'll have threats from other areas of the pitch. So I don't think it's a case of Guimaraes is out, Liverpool are going to win, or their percentage of winning is higher. But I do think it helps Liverpool, especially in that midfield fight, where Liverpool's midfield, as we know, has been very lackluster all year.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll see what happens in that one. Obviously, still got to play Wolves and Everton before we get to that game. So hopefully we can get 6 points from those two, and then into that one with at least a little bit of momentum. But yeah, thanks, Emmet, for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow with another Liverpool Daily News stream. In the meantime, remember to check out all the written content on liverpool.com. But yeah, like I say, back 9:30 tomorrow, and we'll see you then.